So
Thank you.
welcome again to this joint AFREC and then IEA joint webinar on energy security data in Africa. So allow me, as you see in the agenda, we are going to have two opening remarks, one from AFREC and then one from IEA. So let me read the opening remark on behalf of Mr. Rashid Ali Abdallah, who probably will join us during probably join us later because he's busy in another meeting now. So good afternoon, good morning, and good evening to all our distinguished participants joining us from across Africa and the world at large. On behalf of the Africa Energy Commission, I honor to welcome you to this joint Africa and then IEA webinar on securing Africa energy future, building a robust energy security data system. Let me begin by extending a warm appreciation to our colleague from International Energy Agency for the continued partnership and technical support in advancing Africa energy data agenda. I would also like to acknowledge the representative from Energy Ministry, National Statistical Office, Regulator, Utility, Regional Power Pool, Central Bank, Academician, and our development and private sector partner who have joined us today. Your presence is well appreciated and then underscore we growing recognize that energy security beginning with reliable data. Africa energy systems are evolving at extraordinary pace, yet they are increasingly shaped by volatile global fuel market, climate extent, infrastructure bottleneck, and rapid electrification. In this context, energy security is no longer just about supply. It is about resilience, affordability, accessibility, and then adaptability. Timely and reliable data are the backbone of effective informed policy action. They enable early warning system, contingency planning, and informed investment decision. However, as many of us know too well, energy security data in Africa remain fragmented across institutions, compiling with various definitions and then often disseminate too later to decision to inform decision. Today's dialogue is therefore both timely and strategic. It allows us to reflect on how we can strengthen national and regional data systems to better anticipate and respond to emerging risks. This joint section between AFREC and then IEA seek to establish the importance of energy security data for Africa policy priority, explore how African Union member states can build stronger, more interoperable data system aligned with international standards such as IREC and SIEC, and showcase concrete examples and tools that can translate data into actionable insights. By the end of this session, we hope to reach a shared understanding of what energy security data mean in the African context and identify practical steps to bridge existing gap. I wish to thank our partner from the International Energy Agency for sharing their global experience, as well as the panelists and experts who will share the lesson learned from African countries already advanced this agenda. Let us use this dialogue to strengthen our collective resolve to make energy security data a foundation for sustainable growth. With this, it is now my pleasure to officially open this joint Africa and then IEA webinar and to invite my colleague from IEA to give us the opening remark. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Samson, and we are really very, very happy to be here with you today and with all our 116 participants. It's quite nice. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I'm speaking here from the IEA on behalf of our Chief Statistician, Nick Johnston, who unfortunately cannot be here at this right time, but is certainly very pleased of our collaboration, primarily IEA and Africa, but then also with all this community of delegates from all the countries in Africa. So this is really very, in itself, a very fruitful engagement. And we hope that this is a sort of continued effort for us and continued achievement over time. We are happy to have other webinars with you. The topic is very important. First is data, and then it's on energy security. So energy security, it's a very important keyword, certainly in the world now for everybody, and certainly at the IEA, who was actually founded in 1974 for energy security reasons, primarily focused on oil at the beginning, and then expand into a much more complex meaning of this energy security, because now we are looking at all energy system, complex evolution of that concept. We look at the gas, we look at electricity, for example. So, and the data, of course, is equally at the heart of the mission of the IEA. We are very happy to talk about how to improve data globally together with our partnerships. And today we'll have the pleasure of hearing from the IEA from two different angles on energy security. One is from Steve Gervais, who is heading the work on the short-term data, on particularly on oil and gas. So it's really the core and the traditional mission of the IEA, and we'll see a bit what we do to inspire also other countries to see what the important data could be for them. And then we'll also hear from Alois Ngiem, who is looking at new methods, new sources that can help us also understanding that much more complex world of energy security. In particular, I think you're presenting the real-time data work, which is extremely important and extremely promising for the future also of the data systems in the world, and of course in Africa. So I think this is very inspiring for us as well, because we'll have the pleasure of hearing also from country delegates, and this is the most important part, I think, of the webinar. And so I would really like to thank everybody and to really once again remind that we are together an important community working to improve data for Africa and for the world. So thank you very much once again, and I wish everybody a very fruitful conversation. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Madam Roberta from IEA. So I think the next now is to the keynote address, why energy security data now. I think this is very important topic for us, as we can hear from a speech from the Executive Director of AFREC, as well as the representative from IEA. I think the energy security data is very important. Now, we keynote address I'm pleasure to present to you today is why energy security data now, policy imperative, and then African priority. Colleague and then partner from International Energy Agency, representative from member state, regional and international institution, and then all stakeholders. It is honor for me to deliver this keynote address on behalf of Africa Energy Commission as this joint Africa and then IEA webinar on securing securing Africa energy future, building a robust energy security data system. Our gathering today is not merely technical, but is very strategic. It speaks to one of the defining question for our continent future. How can Africa secure its energy system in area of volatility, transition, and then opportunity? Energy security is at the center of a national policy debate due to volatile global fuel market, climate extreme, geopolitical tension, and the fast changing technology landscape. This reinforces the fact that data is power and that energy security began with energy data, which was this one is very important because we cannot make sure that we have energy security if we don't have energy data. In Africa, our energy systems are evolving in an unprecedented speed. Electrification is expanding. New renewable capacity are being built. Cross-border power interconnection are strengthening. And then the demand of clean cooking, mobility, and then industrial energy is ever rising. At the same time, we face imported dependency, limited, and then refinery capability, infrastructure bottleneck, fuel price shock, and the climate industrial disparity to hydropower and transmission system. In the moment of government crisis, neither timely and temporary and trustworthy data to act decision to identify risk, to target subsidy, to release stock, to manage demand, and to restore public confidence. Without such data, decisions are delayed, interventions are blocked, and the cost of inaction are borne by our citizens and industry. This is why energy security data is not a luxury, but is a policy imperative. For Africa, it underpins crucial policy goal. First of all, let me now address the issue about the resilience and preparedness. To anticipate and respond to shock, we need early warning system grounded in robust indicator such as stock level, fuel import dependence, power system adequacy, and then outage metric. Secondly, let me now talk about affordability and equity. With reliable data, policymakers can better monitor price, track subsidy, and protect vulnerable households. Transparency in data enable government to enable trust between government, market, and consumer. The third one that I want to talk about is about investment and planning. Investor, whatever domestic or international, rely on credible data and assess risk and opportunity. Data transparency, lower and certain, and then attract capital for infrastructure, renewable and efficient. Fourth, that I want to address you today is alignment with the global energy transition standard. Adopting international statistical framework like the International Recommendation for Energy Statistics, the Standard International Energy Classification, ensure that Africa data can speak at the global language. Let's look like our data can be comparable, credible, and then also policy ready. The policy imperative, therefore, is clear. Energy security data is the invisible infrastructure of energy governance. When data system fail, energy security will follow, unfortunately. At Africa, we encourage government to strengthen energy security data through one, institutional coordination. As I also before, data is scattered across ministry, utility, regulator, and central bank. So as Africa, we encourage all our member states to establish a national data system coordination mechanism that will composed by the energy like we have the energy statistical committee or working group. So we encourage all our member states to have a energy statistics working group led by the Ministry of Energy and supported by the National Statistical Office. That is essential for coherence. Also, what also we think is very important is to harmonize the definition and tools. We encourage the African Union member states to use the Africa data collection template, which is aligned with the IRES and SIEC to help countries to collect, validate, and share data using consistent classification, metadata, and quality control. The short-term energy indicator, I think this is also something that we think is very important. Africa needs a rapid policy-relevant indicator, reserve margin, generation adequacy, fuel stock level, affordability tracker, refinery utilization rate, and then import cover date. This form can be the basic for monthly and quarterly energy security dashboard. I think what also we think is very important is the capacity development. Data system are only as strong as the people who manage them. Because when we have people full of knowledge, the data that they are managing is a very strong data. FREC and the International Energy Agency stand ready to support the African Union member states through training, technical assistance, and peer exchange, build a capacity of African energy statistician and then analysis. The fifth one that I want to address is the regional integration and data sharing. Energy security does not stop at the national border. Whatever through regional power pool, pipeline, or fuel supply corridor, cross-border transparency, enhance collective resilience. A regional energy security data platform can provide a continental early warning system and share shield for African energy future. Ladies and gentlemen, today's dialogue is about transforming data into actionable insight and turning information gap into opportunity for resilience. It is about treating energy security data as a strategic asset to strengthen national and regional data ecosystem grounded in international best practice. Let us work collectively as a government, regional institution, development partner, and private sector in building the energy data foundation for Africa. In closing, I invite all member states not only to manage crisis, but to plan confidentiality for inclusive, sustainable, and secure energy future, because without data, we guess, and without data, we govern. And let me be clear on that. I invite all the member states not only to manage crisis, but to plan confidentiality for inclusive, sustainable, and secure energy future. Because without data, we guess, and with data, we govern. And when Africa governs its energy future with data, we secure our energy future. I thank you. So on this, this come to the end of my keynote. Allow me now to give a floor to Mr. Stephen Jebe, who will make the first presentation of International Energy Agency with title of presentation, Energy Security Data and Indicator to the International Energy Agency. Stephen, please, you have the floor.
Thanks a lot. You can hear me well?
Very well.
Okay, thanks a lot, Samson, for this great introduction. My name is Steve Gervais. I am leading it's a pleasure to be with you today to give you an overview of the energy data we collect So I'm leading the energy security data at the Energy Data Center of the IEA. And so today I will give you an overview of our reporting system in this field and why this information is so important when we are talking about energy security. I will share my slide. Let me share. Can you see the slide?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Okay,
You can
perfect.
proceed.
Yeah, okay. So I'm going to start, and as mentioned by Roberta, with a little bit of history and why the IEA, the International Energy Agency, was founded. Then I will try to explain why the collection of timely, accurate, and regular energy data is crucial. And I will conclude with my presentation by describing some of the indicators we compute here at the IEA. Okay, so the role of the International Energy Agency in energy security. So I mentioned by Roberta, okay, in 1973-74, the world suddenly realized that we are dependent on oil, and with the crisis at that time, it demonstrated the profound importance of oil to the global economy. So that's why the IEA was created in 1974. And the main mission of the IEA is to coordinate at that time collective responses to major disruption in oil supply. So you can see the picture of the signature of the International Energy Program, which is a treaty on which the IEA is founded. So all the IEA member countries have to sign this energy program when becoming member of the IEA. So only a short reminder of the obligation for the IEA member countries. They have to hold emergency oil stocks at a level to ensure total stock levels equivalent to 90 days of net import. Also to maintain a set of demand restraint measures capable of reducing oil demand by up to 10%. And last point, to undergo regular assessment of their emergency stock levels, demand restraint measure, and ability to contribute to a collective emergency response. To conclude this short introduction, only I don't want to go into details on that, but you have on this slide the two main type of measure that can be activated by countries. So the countries, they can increase supply, oil supply, or reduce oil demand. So you can release stocks, or you can force the countries which are producing crude oil, they can increase the production. And in terms of demand, you have several measures in place to reduce the demand. It can be really like a prioritization of the sectors or fuel switching. So here, really, the IEA member have both supply and demand measure to help disrupted oil markets rebalance. So it was only a short introduction to give you a summary of the energy security system in place at the IEA. But to be able to assess the effectiveness of all these measures, there is a clear need for timely, accurate, and regular energy data. So in my first slide, it's really to remind, well, it's focus. We are focusing on oil because we have a lot of experience and on oil data. But one thing really important, when we are talking about energy security and the role of data in case of a crisis, we need first to rely on a robust, regular data system, because we need to know the situation, okay, before the crisis, during the crisis, and after the crisis. So what is, and to have all these elements, what is really important is to have a regular data reporting system, okay, to have a clear information, because if you are only collecting information during the crisis or after the crisis, you cannot really assess what is needed in terms of policy. So what is really important is to have a regular data system, data reporting system in place in the country. And if you need more additional information, you can put in place an emergency data collection system on a specific aspect for some specific sectors, or to have early data on a specific need. So here on this slide, you have the full oil data and emergency collection system at the IEA. So on this diagram, you can see at the bottom the annual oil statistics questionnaire. So it's a really detailed questionnaire with a lot of information as well on the final consumption side. You have a monthly questionnaire, monthly oil statistics questionnaire. So with a comprehensive data balance for all the oil products for a country, and really a lot of detailed information on stocks levels. We will come back to that later. I don't know if some of the participants here know the JODI initiative. So it's a Joint Organization Data Initiative. So there is a questionnaire attached to this initiative, which is available on the IEF, the International Energy Forum website. And here it's a M-1 questionnaire, a little bit more aggregated than our MOS, the monthly oil statistics. And the QE, it's the emergency data questionnaire. We activate only when there is a crisis, or we can activate that for exercises we are doing here at the IEA every 2 years. Let me focus on the MOS, because it's really the questionnaire on which we compute a lot of indicators for the IEA. So it's a monthly questionnaire, and I would like to really, it provides an overview of really the full balance of a country every month. And two things really important here is to have a comprehensive supply side data, because if you are collecting only a part of the balance or only some flows, you are not able to assess really and to assess the quality of the data and to rely on this data. So if you collect only stocks information, but you don't have the stock movement or the supply, the imports, exports for all the products, you are not able to assess the quality of the data. So, and if you don't have high quality, you cannot rely on this data. So it's really important to have a comprehensive supply side data. And the other point, so this questionnaire, it's on M-2 basis. It means we are collecting for example, January data is collected at the end of March. We try as much as possible to improve that and to have more and more M-1 data. It's really challenging because a lot of entities are involved in this process on the countryside, really for national administration. So it's challenging, but it's really important to have timely data and early data. It's even better in terms of energy security. Why we need to collect really monthly, so short-term data. It's really important to have to collect annual data with very detailed information on sectoral consumption for medium-term, long-term outlook, for example. But here we are really looking at the monthly data to have a proper and proper picture of the market at a certain time and a certain month. So, and we are collecting this information to be able to get really the proper picture. And with monthly data, one point is the seasonality. So you have two examples here of the trend, the patterns for demand in Greece with jet kerosene, with more tourism during summer. So you have this peak here. And on the contrary, on the UK, you have the demand going down for summertime because it's used, the other kerosene is used for heating most of the time. So it's only two examples to show you that it's really important to have the monthly data to take into account the seasonality in the assessment of the market. Also, the monthly data allows us to see and to take into account the maintenance. So in this case here, you can see for Canada, usually they have some maintenance at the same time over months, so in April during spring, and we can follow that with the monthly data. So if you look at the annual thing, you won't see that, but here it's really important to be able to properly assess with this view. Another last example on the importance of collecting short-term data monthly. It allows us as well to visualize some effect of some sudden events that could happen in our economies. So this it's an example of the strike, the impact of the strike in France in 2016. On the user side, on the consumption side, you can see the spike in May 2016 because the consumer were anticipating the strike. So there was a high consumption during this month. So the monthly data allows us really to see that and to properly assess. And on the supply side, you can see the refinery output. Due to the strike, you have a decrease in the production of the refineries because the stocks and the import were blocked due to the strike. So it was really to show you the importance here to have monthly data, and this it's really the basis for the IEA emergency response system. So it's to monitor the market, to have supply and demand, also to have information on the trade flows. It's internally we assess the energy system resiliencies of the country. So all this data is used for that. Also to assess the ability to meet the International Energy Program requirements, what I was mentioning at the beginning of this presentation. Also to be able to see if the countries, the IEA members, are compliant with their obligation. So with the monthly stock levels and also the net import of the previous years, we can compute. We can check the compliance of all the IEA member countries. And also, with the detailed consumption on the last 4 quarters, we are able to assess the ability to countries to participate in a collective action and to calculate the country share by country, because this system is really based on the solidarity principle and on the collective effort by all the countries. So the monthly oil statistic questionnaire is really a basis. I want to insist on that for the IEA emergency system. So from all the data we collect, we compute energy security indicators at the IEA. The most famous one is the oil stocks, what I just mentioned in days of net import. So you can go to the IEA website and check the number of days by country on the appropriate web page. So you can see the number of days, and here you have the number of days for the total IEA. It's 621 days for June 2025. And if we take into account only the net importing countries, it falls to 141 days of net import. We will have time if you want to have more information after the presentation to discuss that. Also, we can compute some specific indicators. So following the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, we decided to create an indicator on the reliance on Russian oil. So you can see here the evolution for OECD Europe. So at the beginning, we wanted to have only one aggregated indicator, but it was really difficult because depending on the oil picture of each country. So if you have a country really importing a lot of oil from Russia to produce a lot of product, but to export the product, or if you are really dependent on the import from Russia for your own domestic consumption. So at the end, we decided to go with 3 indicators to look at the imports from Russia compared to the oil demand of the country. Also to see the share of the import from Russia in regards of all the total oil import. And as well, the last one was the oil import from Russia, but we compare with refinery intake figure of the country. So you see the evolution of this indicator over months since the beginning of 2022. And more recently, we also came up with more indicators, more energy security indicators for oil and gas. So we are computing these indicators. The first one is the import dependency. So it measures how much of a country consumption is met through imports. High dependency implies stronger exposure to external supply shocks or geopolitical events. We have as well another indicators, a supply diversity indicators. So it's calculated using the HHI index. Okay, and so this method is well known in the energy security field. And with lower value, it means you have diversified and secure supply. And if you have high values, you have more under the risk of if there is an oil supply disruption. If your supply is too concentrated, you are more exposed. We are computing that with the data we collect on oil and gas for each country. We share that internally with our analyst here, our energy security analyst at the IEA. We also have other indicators in terms of storage and stocks. So we are looking at the storage capacity and stock levels in days of forward demand. So it indicates how long domestic demands could be met from stocks. We have as well the storage fill level. So as a percentage of the storage capacity. So it reflects, and for gas, it's really important. It reflects the seasonal preparedness and readiness for demand surges. And also we have one indicator for the growth in land deliveries in relation to storage and withdrawal capacity. So it's assess whether storage can supplement import during high demand periods. We have as well some indicators on the infrastructure. On pipeline import capacity, on also regasification capacity, and again on gross inland deliveries in relation to total import capacity. So it measures the adequacy of import infrastructure. So you can see some here some graphs example of these indicators. As a conclusion, I would like to mention the key recommendation highlighted at the summit on the future of energy security, which was held in London at the beginning of this year. And the main recommendation is really to continue our mission on monitoring oil and gas market. Also to facilitate data on best practices within and between countries and between also international organizations like AFREC, and also to improve data transparency. And this is really important. And so you mentioned that it's really to identify and address gaps in supply chain data. Also, I would like to mention with the clean energy transition, energy security risks are more and more diverse. Okay, oil security remains crucial, and I invite you to have a look at this commentary published last year by my colleagues from the energy security analysis team. But as mentioned by you, Samson, as well, there are new topics on the table. One of them is really the electrification. So we will see that with Alois later today. And also, and it's really an important point, it's to secure the supply of critical minerals. And on this point, the IEA implemented some years ago already an entity to work on critical mineral to be able to assess the market on that, the concentration, the risk, to explore the risk in this field. And this is really important for the future of energy security. So it is the end of my presentation. So if you have any question or remarks, don't hesitate.
Thank you very much, Steve, for this wonderful presentation. I think it shows us clearly the data that you collect in a short-term period, and then also the periodicity, and then also especially with data that you collect on oil and gas to ensure that there is energy security in various countries. Let's proceed straight to the next presentation of IEA. I give the floor to Alois. Alois, please proceed.
Many thanks, Samson, and thanks for letting me the opportunity to speak here about one of the tools that we build at the IEA that is very relevant for energy security and more particularly for power security, which is the real-time electricity tracker. I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Okay. Okay, so this is so I'm going to talk today about the real-time electricity tracker. So as I was saying, it's a tool that allows us to look at electricity, but with the granularity of the hour, which is a granularity that's really essential when you talk about power security, because contrary to oil, where the supply has to be met and stocks are available for a period of a couple of months, generally, then for power, the supply has to match the demand at every given hour. So it really triggers new challenges, which are in data, that the granularity of the data has to be much, much more important, much higher. And the consequence of this is that also from a technical point of view, you have to build very big databases. let me choose my slides. So the presentation today is going to be 4 main parts. So the first is going to be about the context and vision. So what is the data landscape that allows us to build a tool that would show us data as granular as the hour. Then the second one is about the real-time electricity tracker. So what is it? And then I would show you a bit of a demo to show you a bit the extent of the data that we're able to provide thanks to this tool. And then I will be sharing with you how we were able to use and combine real-time electricity data with annual data to come up with real-time CO2 emissions data, which are also very interesting when it comes to better understanding the status of the electricity of a given country. And finally, I will try to get back to where we are here today, which is really to try to see how we can contribute and value Africa's data. And the idea would be here to show you a bit of a couple of recommendations or ideas to strengthen electricity data for African countries. Let's start with the context and the vision. So this is the state of play. So outside of the IEA, we've got a very high quantity of data that is becoming available. So which means that you've got a lot of different sources, them being either TSOs, transmission system operators, utilities, market operators, regulators, national statistical offices that are providing data and that are making it available. And then when it comes to electricity data more particularly, you've got this idea that this data is very timely. So in a lot of different sources that we see online, they're able to tell you right now, if it's 1 p.m., then you're able to see what's the data currently, what's the electricity generation and demand currently in the country. And finally, we've got all the technology in place to make sure that we're able to extract this data and absorb it into systems. Even though, of course, when you're talking about hourly data, the quantity of data is extremely massive. And then, so within the IEA, we've got the infrastructure, so data infrastructure, we'll be able to capture hourly data. And as we want to become a data-driven organization, then of course, the idea is to try to see and to look for all the opportunities when it comes to data, including hourly data. And finally, I think a really important topic, which we're going to discuss a bit more later, is the topic of skills, which is really important. And what I would say is that within the IEA at the moment, there is a sufficient amount of skills to be able not only to get the data, but also to harmonize it, put it into databases, and to make it usable. And now let's talk more in particular about the tracker. So how is it built? What does it consist of? So the tracker is a sort of it's a tool that allows, first of all, to extract data. So as you can see on the left side of the screen, where we have all the different sources, and of course this is just a snapshot, like a couple of sources of what we actually have. We've got about 60 different sources, and all those data sources are providing electricity data. And what we have done is that we have connected Python scripts, so basically automated scripts that are going to each of those websites, extracting the data on an hourly or on a daily basis. And all this data gets absorbed, compiled, and then inserted into a single database. And then thanks to this database, we have all this data that is coming from very, very different sources, harmonized in a single place. And then from there, we're able to compute indicators and to do some visualization and analysis, for instance, feeding into IEA reports. And so what is interesting about the system is that it's a system where computers do most of the job. So all the extraction will be done fully automatically. All the checking will be done fully automatically with zero human intervention. And it would be actually impossible to have human intervention because we would need to have humans to be there every hour. Then we have a harmonized validation that is treating every different data sources in an analogous way. We've got a single system of storage. We've got tools connected to it to be able to analyze the data. It's close to real time, as I was saying. And of course, the fact that everything is automated allows us to extract a lot of data sources. So let me try and present you the tracker. I'm gonna switch. Okay, so this is our real-time electricity tracker. So you can see here the amount of data that we have, the different countries that we have. For instance, in Africa, we have 2 countries, which are Nigeria and South Africa. And here I've selected the days of the previous week. So you can see that the data is very up to date until today, basically. And let me look at a couple of countries. So for instance, if we look at Bangladesh, then we're able to look at the data from Bangladesh. We're able to see the hourly mix on an hourly basis, the mix on an hourly basis. So you can see really for a given hour, let's say for instance, yesterday at 11 p.m., the mix coal was generating 3.87 gigawatts. Natural gas was generating 5.07 gigawatts, et cetera, et cetera. Of course, you can look at different countries. For instance, I wanted to show you South Africa, where you can really see generation growing at the beginning of the day, decreasing, and then growing again, and decreasing finally during the evening as people are going to bed. And this tool is really great because it allows you to show those different indicators in a single place with the same matrix. So you really have this comparability effect. Then something I wanted to show you as well was the case of Spain, because in Spain, back in April, on the 20th of April, actually, there was a blackout, close to a blackout in Spain. There was a lot of electricity that had to be disconnected. So you can really see it here. And we were able to show this data right the day after the event happened, where you can see that exactly here between 12 to 1 p.m., then the generation collapses completely. So you can see solar generation moving from 17 gigawatts to 5 gigawatts. So a decrease of more than 60%, which has had a huge impact on Spain. You can also see with this tool other indicators like electricity demand, prices. So this would be, for instance, the price on the same day for Spain, which you can see there's negative prices, which means there was an oversupply at a given point in time. And you can also see trade. So here, for instance, you can see the status of the trade within Spain at this given day. So France was exporting a lot of electricity to Spain to support. And of course, the picture for the flows, and we can have it also at the more global level. So you can see flows in Europe, flows from India, flows going from Canada to the US and then to Mexico, all the flows also in Central America. So there's really a lot of data that allows us to do a lot of analysis at the hourly level. So let me go back to my presentation. And so sorry for that. Yes, so now when you have the real-time electricity data, you can also use the real-time data, the hourly data, to combine it with annual data. So the official data that we're getting from questionnaires through the national statistical offices. And so what we've been trying to do here is to look at the different sources that we have at the IEA and try to see how we can change and modify and adapt this data to compute indicators. And so what we've been doing is that we've been combining the real-time electricity data that you can see here at the top of the screen with all those different sources, and that is updated on an hourly or daily level. And we've been trying to match it with our emissions factor database. And with this, we've been able to create hourly CO2 emissions intensities. And this is particularly interesting and relevant because in the context of the GHG protocol, there's a will to move to more granular CO2 data. And this data set is gonna push into that direction. It's gonna allow also for thinner analysis when it comes to seasonality, to daily patterns, etc., etc. So I wanted to show you a bit the carbon tracker that we have, which is also a very interesting tool to look at emissions. And so here, no. Okay, so back to the tracker. Yes, so the CO2 emissions are here, and this is, so the blacker the country, the higher the CO2 intensity. So for instance, if we go back to the case of South Africa, here, then you can see for South Africa, the emissions at the hourly level on the 28th of April, for instance, which is the date that we were observing. And you can look at you can also see the emissions on an hourly level. So this is estimated based on the annual factors again. And then you can look at the CO2 intensity profile. So this is a typical profile for a country that has a bit of solar, where the intensity, for instance, is lower when the sun rises and is higher when the sun is down, due to the fact that solar is carbon free. And of course, this can trigger policies that aim at shifting demand towards the moments where the carbon intensity is the lowest, for instance. Right, so let me get back to the presentation. Okay, so then what do we do with this data, and why does it matter really for energy security, in particular for power security? So I've tried to come up with 4 different main items where power security can be made thanks to real-time data. And again, as I was saying at the beginning of the presentation, there's no such thing as a power security indicator without hourly data, because the supply really has to match demand on an hourly basis. And if that's not the case for a single hour, then the grid is being lost. So the way to approach energy security indicators in power is really different to the one that we have for oil or for coal, for instance. So there's the first item is about supply adequacy and reliability. So the idea here is that at every hour we should have a good match between the available capacity and the demand. And there's a lot of indicators that we can build thanks to the real-time data. For instance, the frequency of scarcity hours, the reserve margin at any hours of the day, the curtailments that we can observe in different fuels, and the share of dispatchable generation. So really here, the point of those indicators is to look at how supply is able to match demand at every hour of every day in the year. Then the second one is about price stability for those markets, of course, that have a price for electricity, so have an electricity market. Then, of course, we will talk here about price volatility, scarcity price events. So in some markets, you've got very high prices, and they reflect the fact that there's a lack of cheap available power generation. And then you also have the contrary, which is negative prices in those countries that allow it, or very low prices, which show that on the contrary, you have too much supply. So for instance, too many renewables that cannot be switched off at a given point in time. And then you've got the topic of interdependence, and Sanso, you were talking about the fact that we should not consider only at the country level, but more at the continental level. And I think this is very true for Africa. There's different projects, for instance, in Africa that are aiming at putting together different pools. There's a northern pools from Morocco to Egypt, western pool from Mauritania to Nigeria, and southern pool from Rwanda to South Africa. And the idea being that those pools would be interconnected heavily with interconnections from the grid. And of course, once you have that, then there's also the importance of import dependencies, for instance, between different countries, and the fact that what does happen if a given cable is off. And I think these are really important to try to measure the risk at which a country is given its interconnections. And the final aspect that is important is the aspect of environmental and resilience aspects. So for instance, renewables variability, but also CO2 intensity, the frequency of high CO2 or low CO2 events, et cetera, just to be able to show the distribution, the variability of environmental impact of the grid. Yeah, and then so to conclude, I would like just to share a few tips to make it to the tracker. So make it to the tracker is not really the final goal, but the goal is to have transparent and open data on electricity, which is really key to do analysis. So yeah, so it's at the moment we only have 2 African countries on this map, which means that as far as we searched, there were only 2 countries that were openly sharing their data. And of course, sharing data for any country is extremely important because it allows to be featured in reports. So I've put here a couple of reports that are featuring our real-time electricity data. So there's one, for instance, of wind and solar. Of course, the electricity market reports, the Clean Energy Monitor as well is using this data. And the fact that we don't have a lot of African countries is a bit of a problem for us because it impedes the fact that we can do a lot of analysis on those same countries. And we would really value the fact of being able to not to talk only about Europe or North America, but to talk about other countries as well. It's really the case for South America, where they have a lot of open data, but of course we would value the fact that Africa share its data, and for us to be able to value this data would be extremely helpful. And then what are the keys to make this data open, freely accessible? So there's a couple of aspects to it. The first one is, of course, about the digital infrastructure. But actually, in most cases, for African countries, this digital infrastructure exists and is hosted by the transmission system operator. Because for the operation of the grid, there is a need to have data to be able to match demand. So generally, the data infrastructure already exists. But the most important aspect of it is to make this data that is able internally for the TSO to make it externally available for agencies like ourselves, for competitors within the market, for investors, or also for international organizations. And then the second one is about transparency rules. So enforcing transparency rules is extremely useful, and we've seen this in many countries. Of course, you've got transparency rules, for instance, in Europe, that forces the TSO to share openly their data. But we now have this phenomena in many places. So in most of South America, you also have transparency rules due to openness of the market, but you also have transparency rules in some Asian countries. For instance, in 2013, the Philippines opened its data to make sure that all competitors within the market would have unequal information. And then I think something that's really important is that the NSOs, National Statistical Offices, they should play an important role in also being in the loop and making sure that the data that is being shared is actually of good quality and is being comparable with the annual data that we receive in other ways. And finally, the last point that is very important is the coordination. Make sure that as those steps are happening, that there's some coordination with or other organizations, other countries, to make sure that the data that is ultimately being shared is of good use and is of good quality for researchers, policymakers, etc., to be used. So that will conclude my presentation. Many thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you very much for this very wonderful presentation. Personally, I like too much the tracker. And then I think I can see that someone on chat asking if it's online, but they say they give a link. But I think it's very pity that we have only 2 African countries. So I think this is a room of cooperation between Africa and then IEA to make sure that we increase the number of African countries. I think or to have only Nigeria and South Africa, I think we can have other countries also can participate. And then I think to show the data on let's say on I will not say I will not say on daily basis, on hour basis, because every hour you can have already the data. I think something very, very important. So I think let's move to the next speaker now on the energy security index. I will give the floor to my colleague from Salome, make a presentation. Salome, please go floor.
Thank you, Samson. Can you confirm if you can see my screen?
Yes, just go to full screen.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, now,
Thank you.
now it's okay.
All right, thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Salome Maya. I work here with AFREC, and I'm here to present on the Africa Energy Security Index. I'll start by giving a background on how we came up with developing the Energy Security Index. So a number of policy decisions have been made at a high level through the specialized technical committees of ministers in Africa, and these included ministers of finance, ministers of transport, and ministers of energy. And the most recent decision was made from in the fourth ordinary session in September 2023. So this session agreed that Africa should develop a continental energy security policy framework. And it is a joint initiative which is including the Commission, the AU Commission, ECA, ODA-NEPAD, AFREC, AFDB, and the regional power pools. So for developing the Energy Security Index, AFREC is working in collaboration with ODA-NEPAD. And securing Africa's energy future was necessitated by rising vulnerability from volatility in the global fuel market, climate shocks, infrastructure gaps, as you have seen in the previous presentation. We only have 2 countries in Africa because of these challenges that have been highlighted. And also, there has been a growing demand from rapid electrification and industrialization. There is need for reliable, timely, and interoperable energy security data. And the Energy Security Index will offer a continental approach to track and improve resilience. So I'll start by explaining the Continental Energy Security Policy Framework and then move on to the Energy Security Index. So the framework has an overall objective to establish a continental guidance in support of member states to mitigate energy insecurity as it relates to bioenergy, electricity, oil, and gas. So the framework is looking at the definition of energy security in light of biomass, electricity, oil and gas, and why we need the framework and the vision and a number of initiatives. And it will also look at the current state of the energy supply and price trends in Africa, the demand and supply conditions and the effects, the challenges. It will look at a number of issues that have been highlighted on this slide. Now, an example of what it will look at, looking at the drivers of insecurity on demand and supply for electricity, to look at generation adequacy, demand side management, energy system planning, the cost of energy. These are the different aspects that it will look at. And it will also have indicators, it will have measurement, monitoring, and evaluation. So the index is coming in at the part of the monitoring and evaluation. So a number of indicators have been defined in the draft framework, and these include how much is non-renewable fuel input, how much is renewable, the diversity of generation technologies, and the generation players, among others. Looking at the oil and gas supply security, it will look at import dependencies, domestic production capacity, refinery and distribution networks, strategic petroleum reserves, among others. And these are the drivers of insecurity in Africa. So it also has a number of indicators, and these will include the price volatility in the oil market, as well as in the gas market, how much is domestic production of petroleum products, and how much of the domestic production is being, how much of the domestic consumption is being met by imports. So these are in the number of indicators listed on this graph. I will not dwell much as these are covered in the framework. And it will also look at cross-cutting and emerging issues and their implications. This will include gender issues. How are we going to finance energy security, climate change, peace and security issues, and partnerships for energy security? The framework will also look at the strategic goals, actions, and expected outcomes for energy security for biomass, electricity, oil and gas, and the monitoring and evaluation. As I said, this is where the Energy Security Index is coming in. So the monitoring and evaluation and Energy Security Index will look at the fuel resources input, supply stability, generation adequacy, energy not supplied, the cost of energy, among others. And it will now have the different indicators to measure and monitor this energy security. And there will be this is the institutional framework that will be a guideline for the energy supply security and its impact. It will also look at the impacts, industry best practices, and continental and regional coordination and cooperation. So why do we need an energy security index for Africa specifically? So it is to define energy security in the context of Africa, as the global definition overlooks the African realities. And the Energy Security Index will identify the vulnerabilities and resilience factors. It will enable early warning and policy interventions, and it will support Agenda 2063 and AFCTA objectives. So what is an Energy Security Index? Energy security is defined by the International Energy Agency, who we have today on our webinar, as the uninterrupted availability of energy sources at an affordable price. And it encompasses ensuring the resilience of energy infrastructure against physical and cyber threats. And it is crucial, it is a crucial component of sustainable development and economic growth for Africa. And in the context of Africa, energy security is also about harnessing the continent's vast renewable energy potential to foster energy independence and also to mitigate the impacts of climate change. The dimensions of energy security look at availability, accessibility, affordability, and sustainability and resilience, and also environmental integrity and system adaptability. So these are the components of the Energy Security Index. As AFREC, we have 4 questionnaires that collect information for the energy balance, which looks at statistics for coal, biomass, oil, electricity, and gas. And also, we have a questionnaire for prices and taxes. We also have a questionnaire for energy efficiency, and we have a questionnaire for collecting information on the capacities that countries have in terms of their generation. So these questionnaires capture information, but we are facing a challenge where member states are mainly focusing on the energy balance questionnaire. So we will encourage our member states to be able to provide us with all of the 4 questionnaires so that we can cover all aspects of the Energy Security Index, and also to focus on the energy efficiency questionnaire as well as the other questionnaires. The other questionnaires are not that difficult, but we know they face challenges in the energy efficiency questionnaire. So the energy security component index components look at development of the domestic supply. How is Africa self-sufficient? Is a member state self-sufficient? And it will look at the total primary energy supply ratio, self-sufficiency ratio. And also it will look at the reserve versus the production ratio, reserve or versus consumption ratio. And then it will also look at import dependencies of that country, how much has been acquired overseas, which resources, energy resources are being acquired overseas. It will look at the securing a domestic supply chain, management of demand, preparedness for supply disruptions, and environmental sustainability. So we saw that the IEA is more advanced. They are now tracking, they've got a CO2 emissions database, and they're tracking this. And as AFREC, we are also learning from them, and we want to be in a position to have our own database where we have all this information and it will be online. So as I said, AFREC is working in partnership with ODA-NEPAD, and AFREC has the continental mandate for energy data and policy coordination, while ODA-NEPAD has expertise in indicator frameworks, integration, and monitoring. So we will depend on our energy information system, the PIDA, Program for Infrastructure Development for Africa, and the continental CMP frameworks, and the AU Agenda 2063 targets. This will guide us in developing the Energy Security Index. And from the steps that we are going to be implementing for us to be able to develop this, we are still in the scoping and conceptual design stage. So we'll have stakeholder consultations, indicator selection and weighting, pilot testing, and integration into the energy information system for Africa. And we'll measure our energy security, looking at availability, accessibility, affordability, and resilience. Looking at resilience, we will look at the renewable energy share and the fuel mix diversity and the storage capacity. Our infrastructure, as I said, we have the Africa Energy Information System, where we collect data using 4 questionnaires, and we'll also complement the information by socioeconomic, climate, and geospatial datasets. And we'll also look at standardized methodology, and we look at producing a dashboard that will be interactive online for policymakers. And now our deliverables will be the Energy Security Index report, and the country and regional profiles, interactive dashboard, policy briefs and training materials, and integration with AU frameworks. So what we want is for us to be able to move from data to policy impact. So we want our policies to be informed by data. So, so that we have evidence-based planning, energy planning, and we have evidence-based policies. Then this therefore strengthens regional coordination. And also we know that there are power pools and they have this information that we require. And we know there are some regions that do not have power pools, but we know in Africa there are certain regions that have power pools. We would also want the rest of Africa to have power pools. And also this will in turn support early warning and crisis response, and also empower the data-driven policy making. I've come to the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Salome. I think we hear now from what is going on here at AFREC in terms of energy security index. As she mentioned clearly, the work is in progress, and then we think that soon we'll start producing a report on energy security in Africa. But it looks like some countries are doing already something on energy security. That's why before we go to Q&A session, then let's hear from our colleague from Uganda, then Zimbabwe, on the experience on building trust timely energy security data system. So the first presenter will be our colleague from Uganda. Please, Jan, please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Samson. Let me try sharing my screen here.
Okay.
Is it okay now?
Not yet in, yeah, it's okay. You can proceed.
Okay, thank you. My name is Ian Sauzi. I work with Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development, Kampala, Uganda. And I'm going to talk about a few indicators that we generate in regards to energy security. I wasn't able to exhaust all of them, but I compiled a few, so I'm going to have a very brief presentation. This is going to be my presentation. I'll start with a sector overview. I'll talk about energy supply adequacy, energy sources, diversification, access to modern energy services, energy efficiency indicators, sector-specific energy intensity indicators, renewable energy share, and the legal and institutional framework that is in line with energy security within the country. So our sector mandate is to establish, promote the development, strategically manage and safeguard the rational and sustainable exploitation and utilization of energy and mineral resources for social and economic development. The vision for the energy sector is to be a model of excellence in sustainable management and utilization of energy and mineral resources with roles and functions, a number of them, but the outstanding one that is really in favor of us as statisticians is to acquire, process, and interpret technical data in order to establish the energy and mineral resource potential of the country, and many other roles and functions. So how do we ensure that we have adequate energy supplied within the country? We compile a number of indicators, and as you can see here, within our 2024 data collection, we were able to compile data on renewable energy. And renewable energy within the country shares around 91% of total energy production, or total energy that was produced within 2024. with the domestic energy production amounting to 90% as compared to 10% from imports. So how do we plan on diversifying our energy mix? On top of what we already produce, we have a number of plans which are already underway, and some of them are almost materializing. Within the energy mix, we are planning to add on oil production. The country has so far 6.5 billion barrels of oil reserves. And that is just 40% of the country that has been explored. So we expect this figure to rise when the exploration continues all over the country. We also have natural gas reserves that amount to around 670 billion cubic feet. That is still within that section that has been explored. That is 40% of the country, specifically within the Albertine Graben region. And then we also plan on adding into the energy mix around 24,000 megawatts of electricity from nuclear energy by 2040. 2040 is chosen because it's our vision. We have a vision that we call Vision 2040, and by then we think, or we are fighting to see that by then we have nuclear energy in the country with 24,000 megawatts added to the energy mix. So we also promote a number of modern energy services, including promotions to households on usage of modern cooking and other services. So the proportion of households, for instance, that use electricity, that access electricity within 2024, and these are results that came from the National Population and Housing Census, so that was carried out in 2024. The results showed that urban dwellers occupied around 79% of households that access electricity, as compared to 21% from rural dwellers. And then households that use clean cooking technologies within the same year, from still the same census that was carried out in 2024, had urban dwellers amounting to over 250,000, as compared to their rural counterparts that were slightly above 100,000. These are some of the things that we are promoting within the country. We have promotions in relation to clean cooking. For instance, the government is promoting the use of LPG, and we have a goal of having 1 million LPG cylinders supplied to the population. The government is also subsidizing these cylinders, including the cooking kits and the connections, the connection pipes and everything. So a person that is buying this whole kit is actually paying less than half of what they would have paid if they were buying a whole kit from maybe a shop, for instance. So we also compile a number of energy efficiency indicators. Some of which include total energy consumption per capita, total electricity consumption per capita. This is basically electricity consumed per person annum. Energy consumption per capita is energy consumed per person annum. And then we also compare energy intensity in relation to total final energy consumption per GDP. And then we also compare energy intensity in relation to total primary energy supply and GDP. All these in units of kilograms of oil equivalent per 1,000 GDP in dollars. So These indicators are normally derived from our energy balance that we compile. For instance, these current indicators that I'm projecting on the screen came from our 2024 energy balance. So we also compile sector-specific energy intensity indicators. You can see that all our sectors are quite energy intensive, but the most outstanding one is households that uses around 143.24 kilograms of oil equivalent per unit of GDP, $1,000 unit of GDP. And the last least intensive sector is agriculture with 3.62 kilograms of oil equivalent per 1,000 GDP dollars. So Uganda is predominantly a renewable energy country. We have a lot of electricity generated from hydro. That is our major source of electricity. And hydro is a renewable form of energy. So the share of our final energy consumption indicates that renewable energy is occupied 87% in final consumption. Most of this is fuel from biofuels and waste. That is mostly wood, charcoal, animal waste. Animal waste is mostly also used in biogas production. Husks from rice, from coffee, pellets, briquettes, and electricity. The non-renewable sources normally include mostly from oil products. That is petrol, kerosene, diesel, LPG. And then our share of total generation from the energy mix in electricity, we can see that still renewable sources are very, almost all the electricity we generate within the country comes from renewable sources. That's around 99%. As I mentioned earlier, most of our power comes from hydro. A few units come from biogas and solar. So we have a number of laws and acts, strategies that help in ensuring that we are safe and secure in terms of production of energy, both currently and for future uses and production. So some of these include the National Energy Policy for Uganda, that is 2023. The Electricity Act that was amended in 2022, the Electricity Connections Policy 2018, the Renewable Energy Policy that was put up in 2007, the Biofuels Act that was in 2023, 2013, Biomass Energy Strategy, and many others, including acts within the petroleum exploration, development, and production, and petroleum refining, conversion, transmission, and midstream storage that were enacted in 2013. We also have an outstanding national oil and gas policy that was enacted in 2008 that is helping us to explore and it's also leading us to production of our oil next year, most probably 2026. We shall see the first oil within the country. This is what I was able to compile, but we have so many other indicators that we compute that in regards to energy security. And this is all that I have to present today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ian, for presenting this very good experience of Uganda. I think definitely when we start piloting this energy security index, we'll work closely with Uganda and see how you can support us. So I think the next last presenter for today was from Zimbabwe, from Madam Victoria. Please, Victoria, please, you have the floor. If we can share your screen, please proceed.
Right. Thank you, Samson.
Yeah, I think your screen is coming. I'm not yet. Yeah, now you can proceed, Victoria.
Okay. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, clearly. We can hear you clearly.
Okay. All right. Good day, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Victoria Chikawa from the Ministry of Energy and Power Development in Zimbabwe. So I'm going to make my presentation on the energy security data in Zimbabwe. So to start my presentation, this is the outline of my presentation. We'll look at the energy situation in Zimbabwe, the energy availability indicators, the energy accessibility indicators, energy efficiency indicators, energy security governance indicators, energy supply chain resilience indicators, and then I'll conclude my presentation. So for the energy situation in Zimbabwe, as Zimbabwe, mainly for our oil and LPG, okay, I would say we import 100% of our petroleum products because we do not have a refinery. So on average, daily, we have a consumption rate of 2 million liters petrol, 3.5 million liters diesel, and 200 tons of LPG. So, and on a weekly, the country imports on average of about 2,700 tons of LPG per week. And the main sources of energy used in Zimbabwe are fuelwood, which constitutes 65%. This is because the larger share of our population is in the rural areas, and coal constitutes 7%, liquid fuels 17%, electricity 8%. This is according to the energy balance of 2023. And then the national electricity access is at 62% according to the Zimbabwe statistics, according to the census of 2022, of which 34% are on grid and 28% off grid. And then for the main sources of electricity to total installed capacity, we have coal, which contributes 56% of the total installed capacity, hydropower 37%, 4% solar systems, and 3% biomass. I think in the next slide, I'll talk about why we have so much coal as part of our electricity when we are talking about just energy transition. So for the energy availability indicators, we have a total energy production of 10,455 kilotons of oil equivalent. This is according to the 2023 energy balance. And then for the battery energy storage systems, as of now, we don't have as many, and the country is promoting the development of a utility scale battery energy storage system for management of increased variable renewable energy systems, and several companies have submitted bids to build this BESS. Then natural gas and CBM reserves. For the natural gas, it's actually exploration is ongoing, and we have the company Invictus Energy. So the government is actually pushing to enhance the exploration and quantification of the gas reserves. As for the coal-bed methane, we have reserves, but exploration hasn't started yet. Then our energy import dependency for 2023 was 14%. And like I said earlier, for our oil, we have 100%. We import 100% of our petroleum products, that is our oil and our gas, because we do not have a refinery. So because of that, the country has introduced what we call mandatory fuel blending, mandatory ethanol blending, which stands at a maximum of 20% of blending ratio. This is the way of improving our energy security, because with our import dependence, we are prone to geopolitical affairs, like when there were fluctuations in the oil prices, those affected us. So now the government came up with that initiative so as to reduce our import bill. And also, the government has a strategic reserve. So for every liter of fuel one buys, 18.4 cents per liter of diesel goes towards the strategic fuel reserve, and then 24.5 cents per liter of petrol goes towards the strategic fuel reserve also. So that's how the government is dealing with that. And then for the proportion of energy imports, we have oil, which is 83.1%, gas 6.3%, and electricity 8.6%. For the import we have import diversification, especially in the electricity, because we import most of our electricity from Mozambique, South Africa, and Zambia. And for our oil, we import from various countries, especially in the Middle East, like Qatar, Kuwait, and we use the port in Beira, where the fuel will be stored before being pumped into the pipeline in Zimbabwe. So suppose there's something that happens in Zimbabwe, or maybe natural disasters, since we have some storage capacity which amounts to 95 million liters in Mozambique, we actually have some security of supply for our fuel. And then our infrastructure is vulnerable. For example, our biggest hydro, Kariba, which has an installed capacity of 1,050 megawatts, but is now generating only 500 megawatts due to climate change. So now the country is advocating for clean coal technologies. That's why you saw that we have, in our electricity generation, we have actually 56% from coal. This is due to this effect of the climate change. And we can't do away without coal as for the moment, because coal is our best load. But the government is also pushing that if the exploration of the gas is done, we will start producing some electricity from gas. And there are also studies underway to produce electricity from nuclear power, since we have uranium deposits. And then for the energy availability indicators, for 2024, according to the Zimbabwe Energy Regulatory Authority, we have energy sent out was 11,082 gigawatt hours, and 77 million kgs of LPG were imported into the country. We also had 453.7 gigawatt hours of power coming from IPPs, and 17 electricity generation projects with a total capacity of 786 megawatts were licensed in 2024. So you can actually see that we are actually moving, we are making great strides in the renewable energy sector. And as for For the petroleum, 339 retail service stations were graded. And because in our country, we use this grading system like 5-star, 3-star, 1-star. This is a way of bringing awareness to the public that the service you are getting from this service station is like maybe the fuel quality in the service is good. And then for the generation, we have a total installed capacity of 2,962 megawatts, with 40% actually being from hydro. And our biggest hydropower is Kariba, like I said, which has installed capacity of 1,050 megawatts. And then we have Hwange, units 1 to 6. These are old. They have an installed capacity of 920 megawatts. And then we have new units at Hwange 7 and 8, which are Hwange units 7 and 8. So at the moment, as I'm speaking, the Hwange units 1 to 6 are undergoing life expansion. And there is a company from India which won the tender who are doing that. So this is actually a way of improving our electricity generation so that we do not rely on imports. And then we have 322 megawatts coming from IPPs, and most of these IPPs are from mini hydro projects, especially in the Manicaland area, which is the eastern low vale due to its terrain. As for the electricity access, I'll talk more in detail in the next slides. We have an electricity access of 62%, that's the national, 83% being urban, 27% rural, and 28.3% off-grid households.
I think you are breaking. We cannot hear you properly.
Oh, okay, sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, okay, thank you. So for the power generation utilities which are run by the government, we have the Zimbabwe Power Company, which has an installed generation capacity of 2,640, with 1,050 coming from Kariba, the others from Hwange. And then the dependable capacity is between 1,200 megawatts and 1,600 megawatts. And the national installed electricity generation for both on-grid and off-grid is 2,962 megawatts, with light hydro contributing 1,050. That's 35.4%, and coal contributing 56.7%, and small hydro, bagasse, and small IPPs contributing 7.8%. So despite the installed generation capacity exceeding peak demand of 2,000 megawatts, the dependable capacity has remained constrained, resulting in the need for imports and load shedding to ensure system stability. So we are having load shedding in our country for as much as 8 hours per day, and in order to meet this demand gap. And then Zimbabwe being in the center in our region, in the southern region, it forms the central transmission corridor of the Southern African Power Pool. However, the transmission and distribution networks consist of old equipment with inadequate transfer capacity, which requires replacement, rehabilitation, and expansion. It is therefore estimated that 80% of trading on Southern African Power Pool is failing because of lack of transmission infrastructure. And over the years, we have been having challenges because in the sector, there's been fragmentation of planning between the national utility, the Renewable Energy Fund, and the ZETDC, because for every kilowatt of power one buys, 6% goes towards the Rural Electrification Fund. So ZETDC has been the one which was in in possession of the money, and then they transfer it to the Rural Electrification Agency for rural electrification projects. So now the government is intervened by developing what we call the National Integrated Energy Resource Plan, which will integrate the Network Master Plan and the Renewable Energy Master Plan, and determining the least cost energy supply options. Okay. Next slide. So the energy accessibility, our energy access stands at 62%, and 33.7 being on grid and 28.3 being off grid, according to the census. And as we can see from the picture, on the left side, on top, we have 60.7% of the population using firewood for cooking, and 38.7% using clean technology for cooking, and clean technology being electricity, biogas, LPG, ethanol. And then, so nationally, an estimated 6 million ton or more of fuel wood are consumed annually, while the sustainable output of natural forests is 4.6 million tons. So this means the country is losing 330,000 hectares of forest area, over 60 million trees a year. Yet the current planting rate is only 10 million trees. Also, that's why our country produced the national clean cooking strategy, so that we prevent this massive cutting down of trees. We can move to the next slide. Next slide. Yes, thank you. So this table just narrates the electrification access in households until 2030. This was produced from the estimations done under our national energy compact. So for 2024, we have a total number of households which are 4.3 million, and the off-grid households are 1.7 million. And then of those, 2.5 million are not electrified. And according to this study from the National Energy Compact, we have access percentage of 41%, which is different from the one which we had from the census, which was around 62%. So now there's this parity because there's a lagging in connection of some households, and also some households which on standalone solar systems were not considered under this. That's why there's this there are these differences, right? So we can move to the next slide. Next slide.
Can you see it now?
Yes, thank you. So as I continue with energy access, our energy regulator has been reviewing the tariff for electricity, and it was increased from 11.3 cents per kilowatt hour. This is United States cents, to 16.08 cents per kilowatt hour. And Customers can pay both in local and or foreign currency. So this was done in order to improve revenue collection, and the utility has actually rolled out prepayment and smart metering systems, and most domestic customers are on prepaid metering, while at least 50% of customers eligible for smart metering have been connected. And as part of embracing the distributed renewable energy, the government has installed a total of 502 solar mini grids and microgrids for rural public institutions. And these are in the sizes of 5 kilowatt to 25 kilowatt. And to date, we have 333 biogas digesters, which were constructed, and a mini grid regulator framework is under development to govern mini grids development, and it will cover areas such as licensing processes, technical requirements, and grid encroachment. And the framework is expected to drive private sector participation and grow rural electrification rates in Zimbabwe. And we also have the Presidential Rural Solarization Scheme, which is wholly funded by the government and is set to begin in 2025, this year. And this will see 1 kilowatt solar home systems being installed in over 1.5 million rural households. That's providing access to sustainable and reliable energy. So this is in line with our vision. We have a vision 2030 where we are saying by 2030 we have to have 100% energy access. And by energy access, our line of marking or target is that whoever has 1 kilowatt of power has access. So that's why now the government is pushing for this solar home system, so that about 1.5 million rural households benefit from that. Because from my previous slide, I think I've shown you that about 2.5 million households still do not have access to reliable and sustainable energy. Next slide. Next slide. Thank you.
It's lagging.
Oh, okay. Sorry. So maybe it's my network. I'm sorry about that. As for the energy efficiency, according to the World Bank, our energy intensity in 2023 was reported at 15 megajoules per United States dollar, purchase price parity of GDP. And this makes us one of the top 3 worst performers in the SADC. So as a country, we have a long way to go to reach the global best practice figure of 3.4 megajoules per GDP purchase price parity. So from our energy efficiency policy, we have set targets that for a residential sector, they use 84% of the energy, and our electricity savings are aimed to be 40%. And then for the industry, we are targeting electricity energy savings of 25%, agriculture, mining, and energy supply sector 25%, transport 10%, to give us a total of 100%. So on the right side, you can see some of the actions that we are, or the measures that the government is looking at to improve on energy efficiency. For example, in the residential domestic sector, we are to promote more efficient cooking, That's why we introduced, the government launched the Clean Cooking Strategy, which runs from 2024 up to 2030. And then in the industrial sector, we established an industrial energy efficiency program and introduced SME and informal sector energy efficiency program. And the agricultural sector will encourage energy efficiency in irrigation, land preparation, and farm and technology. Okay, next slide. This slide, it talks about the policies that our government has. For example, we have the National Energy Policy of 2012, which was reviewed in 2024. And this promotes the use of all local resources, both renewable and non-renewable, and it promotes energy efficiency and uptake of renewable energy technologies. We have the Renewable Energy Policy of 2019, which sets targets of 1,100 megawatts of renewable energy by 2025 and 2,100 megawatts by 2030. And it also covers some incentives for renewable energy projects. We actually have the Biofuels Policy of 2019. This advocates for community participation in the form of outgrowers. It removed a monopoly on biofuels supply. We have the National Energy Efficiency, which has the energy efficiency targets, which I was just talking about. And the government is developing the electric vehicle mobility framework to promote green electric mobility and also to reduce our energy, our petroleum import bill. And we have key planning instruments like the National Clean Cooking Strategy, which I was talking about. And we have the National Integrated Energy Resource Plan, the National Energy Compact, the National Electrification Strategy, the Network Master Plan, and the Solar Integration Plan. Okay, next slide. So the National Integrated Energy Resource Plan is a planning tool which is under development, and it will be finalized by December 2025, which is aimed at optimizing least cost generation and transmission investments. The National Electrification Strategy provides a roadmap to achieve universal access by 2030 through on-grid, mini-grid, and standalone systems. I've talked about the National Clean Cooking Strategy. And also we have the Government Project Support Agreement, which is a policy tool to de-risk IPP investments. We have the Mini-Grid Regulatory Authority, regulatory framework. I've talked about this. And the National Energy Policy, which was updated this year, I've talked about it. We also have the Electricity Act of 2002, which offers opportunity for private sector investment in the energy sector. And by March this year, the regulator had issued generation licenses to unsolicited private sectors totaling about 7,876 megawatts. And we have the Batoka Gorge hydropower with a project which is a total of 2,400 megawatts, and Devil's Gorge project which is 1,200 megawatts by 2040. So this indicates a bias towards greater private sector investment in the sector. So these are all energy security measures that the government is doing. We can move to the next. Next slide.
Yeah. Samson, can you confirm that you can see the screen?
Yeah, I can see now. I think she should be able to see it now.
All right. The government has also created an enabling environment that includes a lot of incentives such as cost-reflective tariffs. I've talked about the tariff for the electricity sector. And in the petroleum sector, our petroleum pricing is governed by the regulator, and these prices are produced every week. They have a formula which they use for calculating those. So for the electricity, one can purchase either in the local currency or the foreign currency. But as for the petroleum products, it's strictly the foreign currency. And this was done as an energy security measure because when the fuel was being sold in our local currency, we actually had an influx of people from other countries coming to buy fuel from our country and then sell to their countries. So I think in the past years, like in the 2014 round thereabout, you saw we actually had a crisis of fuel in our country, which saw long queues of fuel. So the government then introduced that as an energy security measure. And the private sector can also invest in local and regional transmission infrastructure by taking advantage of the Southern African Power Pool. And then the government has developed the National Electrification Strategy of 2025 to 2030, which is based on the least cost geospatial electrification plan. And then accounting for 2024 estimated ZTTDC domestic customers and off-grid households that own and use solar home systems. We have an approximate of 1.7 million urban and rural households had access to electricity service at the end of 2024. And then, okay, for this, I think I've talked about this, that we have a balance of about 2.5 million households that remain without electricity. That's why now the government is introducing the presidential solarization program and also pushing private players to come and into the distribution and of power so as to curb that. And then for our energy supply chain resilience indicators, like I said earlier, Zimbabwe is a member of the Southern African Power Pool and participates in regional electricity trading by importing 500 megawatts from South Africa through Eskom and Mozambique's Hydroelectrica de Cabora Bassa XCB and EDM from while exporting approximately 204 megawatts, mainly to Namibia, Zambia, and DRC. So the reason why this trade is possible is because Zimbabwe is at the center of these companies, and electricity imports remain an important component of total supply, but the potential for continued trade is constrained by regional shortages and our utilities' ability to pay and transmission capacity limitations. So on the right-hand side, you can see that's the network of the Southern African Power Pool and Zimbabwe, which is teapot-shaped there in the middle. And you can see the existing lines with different capacities moving from Zimbabwe to countries like Zambia, Botswana, South Africa, Namibia, Angola, and but there's no connection with Tanzania, but there are works in progress. We can move to the next slide. So the country has also planned what we call the Zizabona transmission project, which involves Zimbabwe, Zambia, Botswana, and Namibia. So the first two letters of these countries form that acronym, and this would enhance regional trade by developing new transmission facilities. And the government also signed a bilateral agreement with Mozambican government through a special purpose vehicle called Petrozimline and CPMZ of Mozambique to run the pipeline from Beira to Feruca for the transportation of diesel, petrol, and Jet A1. And this pipeline pumps 2 billion liters of fuel per month, but is being upgraded to pump 5 billion liters. And this pipeline upgrade project is at 65%. And there are also feasibility studies which are underway for a second pipeline. And this is expected to export fuel to other countries in the region, such as Zambia, Malawi, Botswana, and DRC, because these countries, they actually get their fuel from Mozambique, then they move through our country to their countries. So the fuel tankers are causing a lot of damage to our road infrastructure. So that's why the government is now coming up with this initiative of having a second pipeline in order to cater for all these countries. Okay. Next slide. So in conclusion, I will say that there are some statistics which we are currently failing to get, but we are on our way because the government is now pushing to have the energy planning department, which will have the sole responsibility of energy statistics, so that we'll have most of the energy security statistics. Like for the petroleum, we're actually using the stock levels and stock takes just to measure how secure to measure our fuel which we have, and we have a supply of maybe 30 days, which the government has set as a target. So those are some of the things the government is working towards. And Zimbabwe is being assisted by AFREC under the Energy Sector Reform Support Project, covering energy efficiency by enhancing sustainability and reducing GHG emissions in public infrastructure. And this project has two main components, that is detailed energy audits of public buildings, including schools, hospitals, and a comprehensive policy review of our national energy efficiency policy. That will be focusing on institutional, regulatory, and implementation gaps. So this is all I had to say. Thank you, and apologies for my network glitches.
Thank you very much, Victoria, for this very good and comprehensive presentation on the case of Zimbabwe on energy security. So I think we left with only 10 minutes before we end. But I don't know, we have already many questions in the chat. So I think we can, I don't know if any speaker want to address I think most of the question has been replied already also on through message. So I don't know if any speaker want to come in again from IESI, from Africa side, feel free to come in. And then also, I don't know if any participant also have any question, but let's stay in the 10 minutes remaining so that we can close the meeting in the next 10 minutes. So any comment from any speaker, feel free to come in. Okay, I can't say nothing. So thank you very much. So I think we can proceed now to conclude our. I don't know. Our colleague from IEA, do you want to add anything? Either from Stephen, Alois, or anything to add?
No, thanks, Samson. Nothing to add on that.
Okay, thank you. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for this very good webinar. I think that this energy security index, what I can conclude is that the discussion should be ongoing because we can see a lot of, we can learn a lot from what we are doing from ISI. I think especially on this data collection, either on oil and gas, on also on electricity. I think we can learn a lot on that. And then also how to proceed now, moving from this annual data collection, go to monthly or daily data collection. I think something that's very good. So AFREC, from our side, we are ready to have further discussion with you, bilateral discussion between AFREC and then IEA and see how we can cooperate. And then also from the electricity tracker, I think, as I mentioned already, will really encourage some African countries to join. I know that some has already very good data, especially North African countries, so that they can join and say to have only 2 African countries who's part of this tracker present very well by Alois. I think we can have more than 2 African countries so that also we can be present when you are showing your map so that we can see the progress that other African countries making in terms of improving the data on energy. And then also I think from Africa side, our goal, our target is to when we can for soon will finalize and then start producing the energy security index, and then also to push also many African countries to do that. So I don't know if Roberta is still there or Steven, you want to say
I'm not
few words?
sure, Samson, if Roberta is still around, but
Yeah, you can
no,
say a
it
few
was
words.
yeah, Roberta. No, I don't think so. So no,
Yeah.
only to it was a pleasure to be with you today, and I think it will be good also if we continue the cooperation between AFREC and IEA. Samson, do not hesitate to forward any question or anything to Zakia and Scott. We were in charge of organizing this meeting on the IEA side, and we will coordinate internally to. So yeah, thanks a lot for all the presentation. It was great.